Hi, this is Dr. Joe Green, head pastor of Antioch Assembly Church located in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Also the founder of the 2019 movement, and I want to share a couple of thoughts with you. You know, as I've been sharing, and just to recap, I've been talking a lot lately about the end times, and it's called eschatological or eschatology, and it's about the end times or the end of the age. And all of us who are Bible-believing Christians understand that the Bible tells us that Jesus came the first time to save the world spiritually, and he's coming back again the second time. Acts chapter 1, it says the same way that he left, he ascended into heaven, he's coming back. But the second time he's coming as the lion. He came the first time as a lamb, he's coming back as a lion. The book of Revelation, the book of Daniel talks about this. You know, I hear some people from time to time, I got to a discussion of a gentleman a couple weeks ago, and he said, well, Jesus isn't coming back again. I don't know why you're waiting for him. But for someone to say that means they don't understand the Bible, they haven't read it, because there's actually more scriptures regarding his second coming than his first coming. So if you believe he came the first time, then you have to believe that he's coming back again the second time. So when he comes back, he confronts this system, this one world governmental system, one world religion, one world economic system known as Mystery Babylon. It's called Mystery Babylon the Great. This is in Revelation 17. Mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of all harlots and the abominations of the earth. And so that's the world system that we're living, that's moving towards this Mystery Babylon system. It hasn't been perfected, but it's far along, and we're getting very close to the end because of some of the things that are in place, some of the things that have been completed that makes way for this one world governmental system. When you understand the advancement of globalism, the move against individual sovereign nations, for instance, when you look at the open borders policy of the liberal left, that's all making way for globalism. When you look at making way for a one world economy or economic system, the Federal Reserve, the international bankers, they're making way for a one world economic system, which is what the Bible talks about. Revelation 13, you won't be able to buy or sell unless you take the mark of the beast. That's the one world economic system, and so forth. So anyway, as we see the world affairs and moving towards that, and like I said, part of what I really get kind of disappointed in people, especially the saints and those who can read and can research things, that when we see this battle waging in America with the nationalists or people like President Trump talking about make America great again, securing the borders, bringing jobs back to America. And then on the other hand, you see the liberal left that is talking about, that's evil, securing your own borders, and so forth and so on. And so that's the battle that's really waging right now. The international globalists, if you will, the cartel, the cabal, if you will. There's many different names. The New World Order people, the globalists, one world governmental system people. All of these are different names for the same system. So when you see them moving towards that, and you understand the season and the time that we're in, it should be very clear that we're very close to, all the different components are in place for that to happen. And so we who are Bible-believing, Spirit-filled believers should be very, very passionate and very definite and proactive in resisting that system and fighting against that system, because God doesn't want that. That's the system that opposes the kingdom of God. So anyway, I'm going to show you how when we talk about the one world governmental system, the United Nations and organizations like that, but specifically the United Nations is one of the most effective tools in pushing forward the New World Order, one world governmental system. Now, when you also understand those who are the ruling elite, the globalists, if you will, the secret organizations, the secret societies, they're all Masonic at its core. At the very top, you have Lucifer. Lucifer is the god of the New World Order, or the one world governmental system. And most of the high-ranking ones will tell you, a 33rd degree Mason knows that Lucifer is the head of the New World Order, the one world governmental system. And just in case you didn't know, the name Lucifer translates in Hebrew as light bearer, light bringer. So they believe that Lucifer is the enlightened one, and that he's trying to give enlighten humanity, give them secret knowledge, and that secret knowledge makes them as gods. They also believe that it was God, the God Yahweh, God of the Bible, who was trying to keep them from that knowledge. So they're actually directly in opposition to the God of the Bible, Yahweh. Now, the system, or the spirit behind the system, is known as the Antichrist system. And when you know that Jesus is the Christ, the Messiah, he is Yeshua HaMashiach, the Messiah. In Greek, it was translated as Christos, or Christ. So when we say Jesus Christ, we're actually saying, the translation, the Greek translation of Christ. So, when you understand the person who opposes the Messiah, he is known as the Antichrist. So the spirit is called the Antichrist, the system of the Antichrist religion. So anyway, I wanted to give you that background so you have a full understanding as we move forward. Now, the United Nations is one of the greatest tools in moving towards that. Just to let you know, the United Nations is not a good thing. It's not a good organization. Many times we get caught up in the fact that they may, give some, feed some people, or they go in and rescue missions, or peacekeeping force, and those type of things that they do. But at the end of the day, the Bible says that Satan, or Lucifer, he can disguise himself as an angel of light. So don't get caught up with the good works that they do, because at the core, they're moving towards this Luciferian Antichrist one world governmental system. And there's a couple of specific tools I want to talk about today, so that or you'll see these things, because once you see them and you have some understanding, once your eyes are being opened, then you'll see these things, you'll be making aware of them. And once you grab a hold of these truths, then you can't unsee them, and you'll see it's right there in plain sight. Another thing real quick, I just want to tell you that God created everything. He created the heavens and the earth. And because he created the heavens and the earth, you have to understand that everything is under his control. Even the devil, even evil, has to submit ultimately to the authority of God, of Yah, the Most High. And so he can't do anything that God doesn't allow him. That's a whole nother talk as to why he allows him to do things. But just for your understanding, he can't do anything unless God allows him to. So, and I say all that to say that when we see the patterns, when you have your eyes that are open, the eyes of your understanding being open, you understand the strategy, the plan of the enemy. You also won't be taken advantage of, because like I said, once you see it, you can't unsee it. It's so blatant. It's so obvious, these things that are occurring. And so what I was saying is the enemy has to operate in symbols. And so that's how they communicate. They communicate through symbols and through patterns and those type of things. So a lot of times, people see them throw up the pyramid or the horns or something along those lines, because the enemy is forced to communicate in symbols, and he has to tell on himself, basically. He has to tell on himself, because when he tells on himself, he gains agreement. So because God has given authority to mankind in the earth, that we have authority. We have more authority than we understand. But once we tap into that authority and operate and function in that authority as God has given it to us, then we have victory. We can overcome our situation and circumstances. But because many of us don't understand the authority, we actually end up agreeing with the Antichrist, with the enemy. So when he communicates in symbols and he tells what he's about to do, what he does is he's able to deceive and to twist our minds so that we come into agreement with it, especially people of color, African Americans. Most of the strategies that's being employed, and I did a video not long ago about about white supremacy, because we have it all wrong as black people. The majority of us do. The things that we call white supremacy is not white supremacy, and the very strategies of racism and the very tools of our destruction have become the tools of our oppression, have become the very tools that we support and we defend. So the enemy, what he does is he twists and distorts, and because he has gained a certain level of agreement among people of color, his tools are very effective against us. And so if you get a chance to subscribe to my YouTube channel, I have a bunch of videos that speak on these things. So, you know, just you can page through them and do the research. I have a couple of hundred videos out there with a lot of information. So please feel free to page through there. Again, I'd love for you to subscribe to my YouTube channel, hit the notifications button. So every time I post another video, you'll get an indicator so you can see it for yourself. So, also the 2019 movement, when you go register for it, we're looking for some spectacular things that are occurring, some really eye-opening things. So, you don't want to miss out on what's coming down the pike. I talked about the fact that this is a one world governmental system. I wanted to talk about the fact that it is the United Nations that is at the core of pushing forward this agenda. And there's a couple of things that they use. First of all, there was a time during President Obama, and just to let you know, President Obama and the Clintons as well, but President Obama, he took the globalist policies that the Clintons and the Bushes advanced, and he put them in the hyperdrive. He really just went completely, like the LGBTQ agenda. That's part of the globalist agenda, one world governmental population control agenda. When you understand the, you know, just a lot of the things that he did, which eroded the sovereignty and the strength of our nation, it's because he was a globalist. He was chosen by the globalists. George Soros and those other people handpicked him and promoted him and put him in place. The Clintons are very much interconnected. So if you understand Bill Clinton, and here's what's reported, and there's a lot of evidence to back this up, but Bill Clinton is actually the illegitimate son of the Rockefeller family. I believe it's John Rockefeller. So if you know that the Rockefeller family is one of the bloodline families of the global elite, and that's why Bill Clinton is like Teflon, that he does a whole lot of stuff, but he never really gets caught up in anything. Of course, Hillary, his wife, she's very much a globalist. And there's several organizations that you can look at and find and see these things. But one in particular is the Rhodes Scholarship. So Bill Clinton was a Rhodes Scholar. And the Rhodes Scholarship program, which is in Cambridge, I believe it is in England, was created by Cecil Rhodes. And what Cecil Rhodes did was he identified the best and the brightest people. So either you're part of their families, their bloodline families, or they identify you as the best and the brightest and the most influential, and they bring you in and they help to indoctrinate you, in the globalist mindset. And so when you understand the globalist mindset, you should recognize that these people that are at the top of this are what they call themselves the enlightened ones. So they're part of Masonic organizations, or they're part of the bloodline families, or some of these other secret societies. They actually believe in themselves as being the ruling elite, and that the rest of society, the other 99%, are inferior genetics and inferior intellect. And because of their knowledge and their understanding of these secret things, they believe that they are actually types of gods, which is why they can do things that we would call evil or wicked, and they don't feel any remorse because they believe they have that right. So what the UN's doing is, as they push towards that, and like I said, with the Rhodes Scholarship, Cecil Rhodes was a colonizer. The African nation of Rhodesia was named after him. You had the De Beers Diamond Company. If you ever saw the movie called Blood Diamond, it talks about that, how these colonists went into Africa and they seized the diamond mines from these African nations, and they actually, because the people are in poverty, and they pay some people and some warlords, that a lot of people got killed for these diamonds and some of the gold and the oil and stuff in Africa. But that's the De Beers Diamond Company. Cecil Rhodes was one of the founders of that. He's a pure globalist, and he believed in colonizing the entire world. So they bring these people into the Rhodes Scholarship program, and they indoctrinate them. So Bill Clinton was a Rhodes Scholar. He's a globalist. He's also reported to be a part of one of the bloodline families. George W. Bush, which is George Bush Jr., he's part of the family. So he's sworn in to Skull and Bones and all that other stuff. But if you look at how he operates, how he functions, he actually doesn't have the same ideology per se as the globalist, but because of his family ties and because he has to take orders, he actually helped to push the agenda forward as well. But his father, George H.W. Bush, was a pure globalist. He was one of the directors of the CIA, and the CIA is the intelligence arm of the New World Order. And so George H.W. Bush is a pure globalist, and he's a brilliant man, and he helped to push along the agenda. So you had George H.W. Bush, the George Bush Sr., who was the president. He pushed along the agenda. Reagan was actually an anti-globalist, but what happened with Reagan is his hands were kind of tied, which is why they made him choose George H.W. Bush as vice president. And there was some things that Reagan tried to do when he stepped out of the line. That's why the assassination attempt happened on him. And they told him, if you keep it up, we're going to not only we're going to succeed this time in the assassination attempt, but we have our number one guy right behind you, George H.W. Bush, who will become president, and he will help push along the agenda. So after Reagan's out of office, George H.W. Bush, he's a pure globalist. He takes power. Then you have Bill Clinton. As I stated, he had 2 terms. He's a definite globalist, and he pushed along a lot of the agenda. And then you had Barack Hussein Obama, and Obama was basically handpicked by the powers that be, placed in power, and he pushed along the agenda like nobody's business, the globalist agenda. And like I said, part of the population control, depopulation, that's especially targeting minorities. It's eugenics or ethnic cleansing, which is what Planned Parenthood was founded on. The abortion industry, the foundation of the abortion industry is ethnic cleansing, racial cleansing. You had gay marriage, the LGBTQ. Now they call it. So, you know, that's part of their strategy. This is all outlined in their writings, that they wanted to promote homosexuality, you know, the breakdown of the family and all these other various things that they did, that they're pushing this agenda. Obama was the poster child for pushing this agenda, unapologetically, unsecure borders. So when you understand that, the New World Order, the one world governmental people, they don't want a strong America, because a strong America is one of the greatest hindrances to them pushing forward their agenda. They use America to push their agenda, but ultimately, because they have things in place to such a great degree, they now want to crash the economy of America. They want to weaken the borders. And so once America's out of the way, then they can, you know, there'll be very little to stop them from fully pushing forward their New World Order agenda. And so then they were banking on Hillary Clinton winning. So Hillary Clinton, of course, who's part of the Clinton clan of Bill and Hillary, who was responsible for the privatized prisons, filling the privatized prisons with black people. You know, back in the 80s, the crack epidemic hit, and through government documents, you'll find out with the Iran-Contra deal that they were actually flying cocaine in from South America. They were landing in Mena, Arkansas. President Bill Clinton was the governor of Arkansas, so he knew about what was going on. And they would go from Arkansas, then they would ship out the cocaine to these primarily black underclass neighborhoods. And then the Clintons, with the Clinton crime bill in 1994, with the 3-strike rule, targeted crack dealers and gave them 100 times longer sentences than their powder cocaine counterparts. So that was the targeting minorities. And then they helped to really push privatized prisons. So with the pushing of the privatized prisons, not only did they help to get the drugs into the community, and then they disproportionately targeted black people, but then they profited off of these privatized prisons that get money, governmental funding for housing prisoners. And then, of course, the Clinton Foundation and Bill and Hillary gets kickbacks from the prison industrial complex. And so it's a vicious cycle that they helped to create, but that's part of the global plan, the globalist plan to push forward their New World Order agenda. Now you had Obama, like I said, he pushed it forward. Hillary Clinton comes back up for election, and they thought it's in the bag. And then Trump comes, and Trump's talking all this anti-globalist stuff, like we want to secure borders of America, or we want to ban abortion. He's a pro-life advocate at this point. You know, people talk about the past, but, you know, this whole thing with Judge Kavanaugh is a pro-life judge. And with the left liberals and the globalist, the feminist, the anti-pro-lifers are so afraid of is that if Judge Kavanaugh becomes the judge and the abortion issue comes before the Supreme Court, then Roe versus Wade might get overturned. And that is one of their biggest fears. And just for the record, especially as a Christian, we got to realize that abortion is murder. God hates hands that shed innocent blood. It's not a woman's health issue, because actually women are worse off by having an abortion than having a baby. 99 out of 100 times, a woman is much better off having a baby than having an abortion, because there's so many negative side effects, whether it's emotional. You have suicidal tendencies. They have all kind of emotional effects by it. They have physical effects by it, like a higher risk of ovarian and breast cancer. There's just so many different negative effects that come from an abortion. So when someone argues that it's a woman's health issue, that men are trying to deprive women of their health, rights, or the rights of their body, that baby is not your body, Mom. It's another life that's growing in your belly. And just like you have a right to live, that baby has a right to live as well. He's born and shaped in God's image, and he has destiny and purpose. So abortion is definitely an anti-Christ a tool, an anti-Christ philosophy that a lot of people have been deceived into following after. So anyway, let's move into what does the United Nations do? The United Nations, they're following the pattern of Genesis 11 and Nimrod, because you got to realize that the philosophy behind the globalists, the Antichrist, and all those other people, the philosophy behind that is an ancient philosophy. It stemmed from Genesis 3, when the serpent went into the garden and convinced Adam and Eve to eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. That's where that mindset of this gnosis or secret knowledge originates from, and it has continued on throughout the ages. And people that are high ranking in the Masonry and secret societies and Gnosticism will tell you the same thing, that the serpent is the one who gave them the secret knowledge. So they're definitely Luciferian. They're definitely anti-God. All these philosophies, abortion is hands that shed innocent blood. It actually deprives the God-given destiny of a human life. And so anyway, we have, as people of color, have really been duped in this whole process. The United Nations, and the Obama administration, not only did they tried to push abortion in various nations, and they tied financial aid to it. So America gives a whole lot of money out to other countries to aid them, especially third world countries. There were several third world countries, Mexico in particular, that, Mexico is not necessarily a third world country, but they were getting a lot of aid from America. And what they do is they threatened them to say, if you ban abortions, or if you don't make abortions legal, we're going to hold money back from you. We're going to penalize you by not giving you some aid that you need. Now, think about some of the aid that America gives. It's supposed to be humanitarian aid. So it's supposed to be for food and medicine and things of that nature. So what they're doing is they're actually blackmailing these nations that if you don't accept abortion, then we're going to hold your money back. Obama and Hillary Clinton was very, very, and I know some ambassadors and some high-ranking officials from some African nations that said that they had a meeting. Hillary Clinton and the Obama administration had meetings with them, and they would tell them straight up, if you don't accept gay marriage, we're going to withhold our aid to you. We're going to hold money back from you. And there's a couple on record. I think the president of Kenya and Uganda, I think it may be a couple other African nations, were very outspoken to tell Obama and the United Nations that, hey, we don't want your money. If you're going to try to force us to accept something that's unnatural, we reject your aid. There's some speeches out there that you can see that they did that. But you have to understand that it's not about these situations when the globalists push an agenda, they don't care about the ground level people. So people that are pushing abortion from a globalist perspective, they don't care anything about women's rights. As a matter of fact, they're the 1%ers. So they believe that the other 99% of the world is basically like a extra. They're like getting in the way. So they really don't care about it. They don't care about LGBT people. It's about population control. So these activists, you have ground level people that are really fighting because they're gay and they think gay people should be treated a certain way. But the overall, the people behind the agenda are globalists that don't care about gay people. So you got to realize that these things are very, very much part of their plan, part of their strategy. You got to look beyond their strategy and see the bottom line. With the United Nations, they have another thing that, like in Genesis 11, you have this idea of Nimrod who built cities and compacted the people together. And but God's intention for humanity was that man would spread out over the earth, occupy all the nations. I mean, all the world. And commune with God based on nature. That's why Romans 1, and even in the Psalms, Romans 1 says that all creation confirms that there's a creator. King David looked in the sun, moon, and the stars, and he knew that there was a God. It's throughout the scriptures because God intended for us to have fellowship with him through nature. So when I look in the oceans and the mountains and the trees and the valleys, I start to honor the creator and say, what a magnificent creation that God created. But when I go to a city and it's all built up with skyscrapers and buildings, who do I give credit to? I give credit to man. And I say, wow, look at man's ingenuity. So what Nimrod did is he came up with this concept of cities. And so he gathered the people together in cities to oppose the God of the Bible, the God of creation. And he was able to compact them together. And that's a way of controlling the people and also a way of cutting the people off from the fellowship with God. Because that's why, if you notice from a ministry standpoint, if you know anybody who has gone to Africa or South America, or anytime they go out in the wilderness somewhere, in the desert or in the jungle somewhere, and you have a true worship service, you'll see more signs and wonders and miracles, because of the fact that there's a deeper connection to the creator when you're out in the midst of creation. But when you're in the cities, you don't see as much of the move of God inside the cities for the most part. You do at times, but people don't have the same connection because they're so distracted by the world system, by the traffic, and by the hustle and bustle of everyday life. And so because of that, that's a way that the enemy uses to really get with our connection from God, from the creator. We're kind of not really separated from him, but it's so much noise. It's so much white noise that you don't hear God as much. You have to get alone. That's why even Jesus, and he didn't live in New York City or around skyscrapers, but many times throughout the scriptures, on a regular basis, Jesus would go out to himself. He would go to the mountain, go out into the woods by himself to commune with the Father. And because of the distraction of the world and the world system. So this whole city of building up cities and gathering the people together. So what they've done when you have climate change, or you have this whole climate initiative, if you will, it started, the first one I believe was in 1992. It was the UN's Climate Council or Climate Initiative. They called it global warming. Now they've changed it to climate change. And what the philosophy behind it is, and I'm going to break it down, because the first thing people start to say, oh, you're denying science. That's just a distraction. That's what that is smoke and mirrors. So one of the strategies of the liberal left is they always try to marginalize and make somebody sound stupid. They try to make it sound like, oh, that's ridiculous what he just said. It is absolutely ridiculous. And they try to make you believe that certain things are a foregone conclusion. But really what they're doing is they're giving you their agenda, but they're acting like everybody else believes it as well. It's like if I had this conversation and I said, well, everybody knows that Nikes are the best sneakers in the world. if I'm a Nike salesman, I might say that to you because I don't want you to question it. I don't want you to start looking at other sneakers. I want you to just accept my view that, hey, since everybody else believes Nikes are the best sneakers, I guess they're the best sneakers. I can't be the odd man out. I can't be the only one that thinks that they're not the best. And so that's what they do with their agendas. So whether it's climate change or whether it's gay marriage or whether it's abortion, what they do is they marginalize the other side. They make it sound like your argument is ridiculous. That's a strategy. They actually have that written out, that this is how we do that. We're going to marginalize the other side, make it sound absurd so that we can push our ideas. And so along with that, not only do they use that strategy, but they also try to squelch free speech. And so the whole political correctness, that's part of their strategy that they came up with in order to control the narrative, in order for them to manipulate the masses into believing what they believe and taking the opinion that they're giving them. They come up with political correctness because political correctness says they tell you what's off limits and what's on limits. So they tell you what to talk about, what you can't talk about. Right. So anytime they impose their political correctness on something, you can't say a certain word. And if you say the word, they'll say that's hate speech. Right now, if you say that a transgender person, if they're born a male, they should operate as a male, they'll say that's hate speech. Right. That's part of their political correct agenda. So that what you're supposed to do is now you're supposed to assume, well, I can't disagree with transgender people because that's hateful. Or if I say I believe that marriage should just be between a man and a woman, that it shouldn't be man and man or female, the Bible's very clear about those things. But with political correctness, they push the idea that says, well, you just can't, you can't disagree with gay marriage. Everybody knows, that's that you're ancient in your thinking. Everybody knows that we've evolved to now that gay marriage is acceptable. But it's not that it's acceptable. It's just that that's the agenda that they're pushing. And they squelch opposing viewpoints. Now on college campuses, what they've done is they've created what's called safe zones. And so what a safe zone does is it says that you should be in an environment that's free from offensive speech. And I just want to tell you how dangerous that is. Who's the one that determines what's offensive and what's not offensive, right? That's the dangerous thing. That's why the First Amendment gives us freedom of speech, because you have the right to express your ideas as long as you're not trying to convince people to murder somebody or riot or do some harm to someone. That's the only speech that's not protected. You don't have a right not to be offended. That is not a constitutional right. That is not a human right. You don't have a right not to be offended. We live in a world that people get offended sometimes. Things are offensive at times. I'm a preacher of the gospel. When somebody says that there's many paths to God, or they say that some people say Jesus isn't real and the Bible is just a made up book of fairy tales. That offends me, but they have a right to say that and to believe it. So we got to get out of that. But what they do, even with things like climate change, like I said, gay marriage, abortion, women's rights, transgenderism, all these things that are part of their globalist agenda, they make those things off limits. For instance, let me give you an example. President Trump is a white male. People can talk about him. Kathy Griffin had a skit where she had his severed head of Donald Trump, and they call him all kind of names. They insult him. George W. Bush, they called him all kind of names. And that's okay because they're not in the political correct category. But if it's a woman, for instance, when Hillary and Trump is going back and forth in the debates and he calls her names, they go, oh, you can't talk to the woman like that. He's misogynistic. He's a misogynist. And if you don't know, a misogynist is someone who mistreats women, or it's like a male chauvinist, basically. So even though they're saying that there should be equality and a woman is just as equal as a man, but yet they play this double standard. So when they get in a debate, whenever he challenges her or he criticizes her or he talks to her the same way he talks to another man, all of a sudden he's a sexist. He's a misogynist. And that's the double standard they use. But that's the tactic, the scheme. That's the deception that they use. So that's another piece that they use. So, with global warming, climate change, all these things, they say, oh, you're just a science denier. But you have to recognize that that the actual philosophy behind climate change is a part of what they call sustainable development, the United Nations Sustainable Development. So the sustainable development is a philosophy that's held by the globalists that says that they have to keep the population down to a certain number. And the reason they want to keep the population down to a certain number, now this is their documents, this is their writings and their philosophy. It's not something that I came up with. The reason that they want to keep the population down to a certain level is because the 1%ers believe that if it's too many of the 99%ers, the lower functioning humanoids, if you will, the human weeds as they call us, they believe if it's too many of them that we're going to use all the resources up, and that they actually deserve the resources. So they want to keep our numbers down, and the only purpose they have for the 99%ers is to serve them. So they don't want a whole lot of them, just enough to serve them. But then they also don't want too many, because if the numbers get too large and the masses rise up, then they'll lose their control if the masses ever rise up. So what happens is they have these things in population control. One of them is sustainable development. And they have people convinced that the world is overpopulated or is going to be overpopulated. And because they tell you that the world is going to be overpopulated, and then they tell you that the more humans you have, the higher the temperature is going to be, then we need less humans to use less resources. And so sustainable development wants to limit the spaces where humans can live. Now, just let me tell you for the record, saying that the world is almost overpopulated or is going to be overpopulated is a bald-faced lie. It's a flat-out lie. If you look at if you get a chance, go Google a demographic map of, a population map of the world. You'll see that only about between 5 and 10%, I think, of the surface of the earth is covered by human beings. Only about 5%. I read this report once that they said that every man, woman, and child on the face of the earth could live in the country of New Zealand comfortably. Every man, woman, and child on the face of the earth could all live in the country of New Zealand comfortably. That goes to show you that it's not a true statement. If you've ever traveled anywhere, especially in the country, if you ever you can get on the highway on Route 80 and drive across through the Midwest. I used to live in Chicago. I used to drive from Pennsylvania to Chicago, and you could drive for hours and not see a house. Just long lines of, through Indiana and, some of these places. You could just drive. And matter of fact, it's flat. It's very flat. So you can look way down miles and miles and miles and see nothing but flat land. So this whole notion that they're trying to tell you that, talk about the overpopulation, it actually isn't true. It's what they, part of their sustainable development strategy. Now, what is a sustainable development strategy? They have sectioned the world off into 10 segments. So like NAFTA, or the North American Free Trade Union, is one of the segments that the UN's map is sectioned off. So you have Mexico, United States, and Canada. That is one section. That's a section. So the NAFTA trade agreement that was originated by the Clintons is a way that they're going to use to create these sections, these economic sectors, governmental sectors that will be under the control of the one world governmental system. Now they have it divided up into 10 sectors. And if you look at, like I said, if you get a chance to Google it, look at the map that they have these 10 sectors divided in, because it's a lot easier to control 10 sectors than 170 nations. I think it's about 170 or 180 countries that exist right now. So bear with me. I'm going somewhere with this. I'm not going to be with you too much longer, but I want to lay a foundation. And when I give these talks and I give you a lot of background information, I'm not rambling on. I'm trying to give you a solid foundation for you to research these things for yourself. I don't want you to think that anything I tell you is just my opinion that's not based on a lot of research. So I do a lot of research. I look at the history, I look at the documentation, I look at the writings of the globalists, and I also read the Bible. And I use all of those to come up with these conclusions that I'm deriving, but it's based on a lot of research. So never ever think I'm just throwing something against the wall to see what will stick. So these 10 sectors that they came up with are governmental and economic sectors that will be under the umbrella of the New World Order that the United Nations are trying to put into play. Now, why is that important? The reason that's important is because when you understand the number 10, now, first of all, in Genesis 10, it talks about Nimrod, who was a builder of cities. And when you look at the cities that Nimrod built, there were 10 cities that Nimrod built. So he had Babel, you had Nineveh, and you had the other 8 cities that Nimrod built. So it's not a coincidence that Nimrod sectioned the world off into 10 cities. The United Nations, which is trying to complete Genesis 11 Tower of Babel, if you look at the back of your dollar bill, they're trying to complete that the tower that Nimrod started. It's not a coincidence that they have 10 sectors that they want to divide the world into. Also, when you look in the book of Daniel and the book of Revelation, it talks about these 10 sectors. In the book of Daniel, chapter 7, it reads, and after this I kept looking, behold, another one like a leopard, which had on his back 4 wings of a bird. The beast also had 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. And it talks about these four wings, but it also talks about the 7 heads and the 10 horns. 7 heads and the 10 horns. Now you understand that the 7 heads represents the spirits, 7 spirits. And then you have the number 10, which is the 10 horns that are all part of that. And you look in Daniel chapter 7, if you read throughout that, the 4 kingdoms in Daniel 2 and Daniel 7, it talks about the beast and the beast system that comes up at the end. And like I told you, it's a government, economic, and religious system. They will all worship the beast except for those whose names are written in the Lamb's Book of Life. They won't be able to buy or sell unless they take the mark of the beast, which is the system in play. And, you have this one, the Antichrist and the beast system. So that's the one world governmental system that will control the entire world. And so Daniel 7:19-20, it says, I desired to know the exact meaning of the 4th beast and the meaning of the 10 horns that were on its head. And the horns are 10 kings that arise out of this kingdom. Verse 20 of Daniel 7, the horns come out of the beast, and the horns, which are 10 kings that come out of the kingdom. So each of these 10 segments will have a king or a ruler over top of them. And so again, that's why when you look at what the United Nations is doing, it's not a coincidence that they are sectioning off the world into 10 segments. They're using things like global warming as a way to help to control and to pass laws and to basically gather people together so that they can be controlled by this governmental system. So you have to start to look at look at the signs when you look at how we're moving towards a globalist system. That's why there's such an outcry against President Trump when he started to talk about securing the borders and putting America first. Because what he was saying was, we're going against this globalist system and we are going to try to create a strong sovereign nation. The idea of having strong borders was what God gave, right? He's the one that, the various nations. Now, how we treat each other from a nation standpoint is key. So we have to show dignity and respect to each other. That's important. But at the end of the day, this whole idea of having a one world governmental system doesn't come from God. It comes from the Antichrist, who's trying to look to control and manipulate the masses. And he's using the same strategies over and over again. When you watch the media is owned by the globalists. The one percenters are the ones at the top of the media. Now, you may have a local reporter, or you might have a reporter who's not part of the conspiracy. They're just reading the script off. When you look in like Hollywood and how everybody in Hollywood has the same opinion, it's because the people that own Hollywood at the very top, the people that own the studios and run the industry, are part of the globalist cabal. So you got a lot of these actors, whether they're A, B, or C-list actors, that they may or may not understand the entire conspiracy. They're just following the script, and most of them want to work. So because they want to work, they know that if they don't repeat the talking points that they're given from the industry standpoint, that they'll be blackballed. And so it's all moving towards this one, this one world governmental system. The Bible says that they will all worship the beast except for those whose names are written in the Lamb's Book of Life. So I would encourage you to keep your eyes and your ears open. Follow the patterns. Know what's going on. Begin to study the Bible. If you study Genesis, Daniel, and Revelation, it'll give you such insight as to what is going on now and where this world is moving towards. There is nothing new under the sun. It's the same pattern over and over again, but we have to get more sophisticated in understanding the fact that Jesus is coming back again, and I want to be on the right side of his history and not on the side of the world system. Until next time, peace and blessings to you. I love you. Shalom, shalom.